So let's say you have this worded problem with sinusoidal functions or trigonometric functions, however your topic is named. And we're looking at the simple form of trigonometric functions, which is only having A, B, and C transformations. So you should know the properties, amplitude, periods, principal axis, and so on. With these values, you should when you're given the A, B, and C, you should be able to find all the properties. But now we're going to reverse it. We're going to have the properties, and we need to find A, B, and C. Now, the question might not label them as A, B, and C. It might label them as, let's say, it might label them as P sine Q x plus r, for example. It doesn't matter. As long as you know that this first letter gives you the amplitude, that this gives you the period, and that this gives you the principal axis. This is what matters. So you can pause and read the question if you need to, but the main thing is that we have this set of data, and it's telling you when the first maximum and the first minimum is. It's important to know that they're the first maximum minimum. It means that they're next to each other. And we're gonna try and find the function now. So what's gonna happen is you can decide which function you want to start with. Sorry, which letter you want to start and find. We can roughly graph it and say like at 18, and then we have at 54. We can roughly say that there's like a maximum here and a minimum. Okay, now we don't know if the minimum goes here. Maybe it's maximum and minimum above the x-axis. We don't know, but it's just good to have this type of visualization. Now, one thing to note is that you can find these properties using, you can find the amplitude and the principal axis using different formulas. One of the formulas is that the amplitude can also be found by taking the maximum minus the minimum and then dividing by 2. Okay, so this is a useful formula to keep in mind. So remember, and the maximum and minimum are also the y values and not the x values. So we're going to look at the 8 and the 4. So we're going to take 8 minus 4 divided by 2. And that's going to give me 4 over 2, which is just 2. So the amplitude is 2, and that's the value of A, because we also know that the amplitude is basically the absolute value of A. Okay. Now, next we need the C value, which is the principal axis. So the principal axis is also the C value, y equals to C, but it can also be found by adding the maximum and minimum and dividing by 2. Be careful which one is plus, which one is minus. So 8 plus 4 over 2, that's 12 over 2, which is 6. So we have our C value is equal to 6. Now, there are many ways for us to find the B value. You can substitute values in there and solve it if you want to go advanced at that level. Or you can like roughly graph it by then and you can tell. But another way is, well, to note that for the B value, we're trying to find the period. We need to know within 360. The B tells us within 360 how many times does our graph repeat. If this is my maximum and my minimum, the whole distance from here to here, from the A to the B, capital A, capital B, is the whole period. But it means that the distance from the maximum to the minimum, so just from here to here, is half the period. Okay, so that's a good thing to note with my values. So if I have my 18 and my 54, okay, this distance is half the period. So 54 minus 18, so this will just be 36. So half the period is 36, which means the full period is 36 times 2, which is 72. Okay, and then So the period is 72, but I need the value of B. Now, period, we know the formula is period equals to 360 over B. I know my period is 72, which is 360 over B. And so now I can cross multiply. So basically you kind of switch the B and the 72. So B is equal to 360 over 72. And just a quick calculator run over that, and that's going to give me 5. Okay, so now we found all the values. We have that our B is equal to 5. We found that the C is equal to 6, and that the A is equal to 2. Now, it's good to substitute values in there to know if your 2 should be a positive or a negative, because remember, we take the absolute value of it. So substitute the 18 and substitute the 18 in there to see if you get 8, and substitute the 54 to see if you get 4. But overall, this is the function you're going to get: 2 sine 5x plus 6. So in terms of interpreting the value within the context, let's write the function again. I have 2 sine 5x plus 6. So to understand what each value means, it's basically the same interpretation for any question you have. The principal axis value will give you the average output. So it tells you what's the average outputs. Now in this case, they don't really particularly describe the outputs, but let's just say the output is the frequency, okay, in hertz, okay. So the hertz is the unit. So the average output, which means that the average frequency this note produces is 6 hertz, okay. The amplitude tells you where the maximum and minimum happens. So the maximum and minimum output. So for this question, the maximum or minimum, the highest it would reach is the maximum minimum above the average. So talking just above or below the average for minimum is, so just taking the amplitude, which is 2, is 2 hertz. So the highest or the lowest it would go above the average is 2 hertz. Not saying that the maximum is 2, because we know that the maximum is 8 and the minimum is 2. And then you'd have the period. In our case, the period here is 5. So it tells you within 360 how much it repeats. So we can say that the frequency repeats 5 times within 360 seconds. And 360 seconds is basically just 6 minutes. So you can interpret it within minutes if you want to. So that's basically the interpretation. So within 6 minutes, it repeats 5 times. It goes back to the same wavelength. So hopefully this video is clear. Make sure that you understand the basic properties before doing these properties, but make use of the maximum and minimums and the different formulas for the principal axis, the amplitude, period, and so on.